The most fascinating thing about Lifeson may not be the guitar solos people remember. It may be everything happening around them. For decades, Lifeson stood beside one of rock's most recognizable bands, yet his contribution is sometimes reduced to a few famous riffs, while the deeper story remains overlooked. How did a guitarist known for precision also become one of the architects of Rush's constantly changing sound? And why does his playing feel so different when you listen closely? To understand Lifeson, you have to look beyond the spotlight and into the decisions that shape his career. His story is not simply about technical ability. It is about experimentation, restraint, and knowing when the guitar should lead, and when it should disappear into the music. Lifeson grew up in Canada and began developing his musical identity during the same era when rock guitar was rapidly expanding. But instead of following one formula, he absorbed different influences and gradually built a style that could move between melodic passages, powerful chords, atmospheric textures, and intricate arrangements. When Rush began taking shape, Lifeson found himself alongside drummer and lyricist Neil Peart and bassist and vocalist Geddy Lee. Together, they created something unusual, music that demanded attention from the listener without relying on a single sound. But that wasn't the full story. Lifeson's greatest strength was arguably his ability to adapt. As Rush evolved, so did his guitar work. The early years carried the energy of hard rock, but later records introduced more spacious textures, layered sounds, unusual effects, and carefully constructed arrangements. This evolution mattered because Lifeson refused to treat the guitar as simply a vehicle for showing technical skill. Sometimes his playing was enormous and immediate. At other moments, a small melodic phrase could become more important than a long solo. That contrast became one of the defining characteristics of his career. Few people notice how much discipline is required to play less. In a band as musically detailed as Rush, every instrument had to occupy its own space. Lifeson was working beside Geddy Lee's distinctive bass lines and Neil Peart's extraordinarily detailed drumming. That meant his guitar parts had to serve the entire arrangement. And this is where his legacy becomes especially interesting. Lifeson was not simply reacting to what the other musicians were doing. He was helping create the space in which those performances could exist. His chords could add weight, his melodies could provide direction, and his effects could completely change the atmosphere of a section. Over time, this approach influenced generations of guitarists who discovered that musicianship is not always about playing the most notes. Sometimes it is about choosing exactly the right note. What happened next changed the way many listeners understood Rush. As the band moved through different musical eras, Lifeson continued experimenting with equipment, tones, arrangements, and performance techniques. Yet underneath all those changes remained a recognizable personality. That is difficult to achieve. Many guitarists become associated with one particular sound. Lifeson became associated with curiosity itself. His career also demonstrated something important about long-term creativity. Evolution does not require abandoning your identity. Instead, it can mean finding new ways to express the same musical instincts. By the later stages of Rush's journey, Lifeson's importance was impossible to separate from the band's overall identity. His guitar was woven into decades of music that challenged traditional ideas about what a rock trio could accomplish. And perhaps that is the real story behind Lifeson. His legacy is not built on one famous performance or one signature technique. It comes from decades of choices, some loud, some subtle, some immediately recognizable, and others only noticeable after repeated listening. For new listeners, Lifeson can sound like a technically accomplished guitarist. For longtime fans, there is something deeper, a musician who understood that great guitar playing is not just about control, speed, or complexity. It is about serving the song while still leaving a personal fingerprint. That may be the most revealing part of his story. Lifeson never needed the guitar to constantly demand attention. He allowed it to become part of something larger. And when you listen to Rush with that idea in mind, familiar songs can suddenly sound different. The notes were always there. The real discovery is learning why he chose them.